all please stand and join me in the flag salute. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
I would have bought a different piece of art, you know, the one upstairs with the flag.
If you can please take the roll call, City Clerk, the Secretary, I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry, my screen is doing all sorts of crazy things. Chair Lopez,
Here.
Committee Member Chang,
Here.
Committee Member Froberg is not yet present. Committee Member Gavinia,
Here.
Committee Member Gonzalez,
Here.
Committee Member Merlo.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Secretary, do we have any changes to the agenda today?
There are none.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Michael Gavinia.
I'll second.
Motion by Member Gavinia.
second.
Seconded by Chair Lopez to approve the agenda.
But I note that the agenda that's showing on our screen is from a different commission.
Yes, I did want to note that as well. It's the BIC.
I'll call the roll. Chair Lopez,
Here.
Member Chang, this is to approve the agenda.
Here.
Here.
Oh, yes.
Aye.
Ayes would be appropriate. Member Gavinia,
Okay. Aye. Aye.
Member Gonzalez,
Aye.
Member Merlo.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Right.
Now we will take public comment from members of the audience. At this time, the public is encouraged to address the committee on any matter that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Vernon Community Fund Grant Committee. The public will also be given a chance to comment on matters which are on the posted agenda during committee deliberation on those specific matters. Do we have any public comment? No. Okay, seeing that there are none, we will now go on to presentation item number 1.
Item number 1 is selection of chair and vice chair, and I will present the report. It would be appropriate at this time for the committee to select its chair and vice chair for the term ending June 30th, 2021. All members are available to serve in either position. So it would be appropriate for a motion to nominate someone to serve as chair.
Does, just to clarify, does the current chair get another year? I thought I had read.
The current chair is eligible to serve another year.
Okay.
It's a 1-year term, so it's up to the committee to determine who they would like to have serve as chair.
I nominate the chair to continue on to another year.
And I'm sorry, who is speaking?
Michael Gavinia.
Thank you.
I second that. It's Mark Gonzalez.
Motion by Member Gavinia, seconded by Member Gonzalez for Leticia Lopez to continue to serve as chair. I'll call the question. Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Member Gavinia,
Aye.
Member Chang,
Aye.
Member Gonzalez,
Aye.
Member Merlo.
Aye.
Motion carries. At this time, it would be appropriate for the committee to select a vice chair, and all members are available to serve in this capacity.
I will nominate Michael Gavinia.
I can be a great vice chair, so yeah.
I will second. This is Chang.
Motion by Chair Lopez, seconded by Member Chang to nominate Michael Gavinia to serve as vice chair. Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Member Chang,
Aye.
Member Gavinia,
Aye.
Member Gonzalez,
Aye.
Member Merlo.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we will now go on to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be approved with one motion. Items may be removed from the consent calendar by any member of the committee. Those items removed will be considered immediately after the consent calendar. Does any member of the committee wish to pull any items from the consent calendar? No. Are there any public comments for the consent calendar? May I have a motion for consent calendar item numbers 2 through 3?
So moved,
So
Michael.
moved.
I believe we had a motion by Vice Chair Gavinia. Is there a second?
Second, Gonzalez.
Motion by Vice Chair Gavinia, seconded by Member Gonzalez to approve the consent calendar. Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gavinia,
Aye.
Member Chang,
Aye.
Member Gonzalez,
Aye.
Member Merlo.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now we will go on to new business. Item number 4.
Item 4 is fiscal year 2020, 2021, docket 1, Vernon Community Fund Direct Service Grants. Diana or Fran, will you be presenting the report?
Diana, I think I will, unless you'd like to.
Go right ahead, Fran. Thank you.
So in the order in which they appear on the agenda, I will give you a brief summary of our recommendation and the reason for the recommendation. We can entertain some discussion if you want more information about each of the organizations or the work that they propose to do. I would need to ask the chair, are we going to vote on each one at a time? Or are we going to do consent after each one has been presented?
Let's do consent after each one has been presented.
So we'll vote on each one to
Right.
approve. Okay. Very good. The first applicant is Alzheimer's Association Greater Los Angeles. They are a returning grantee. They are requesting $17,745 for general operating expenses. The Alzheimer's LA is an independent organization, not affiliated with the national organization, and it delivers a myriad of services to families whose loved ones have been affected by Alzheimer's and other dementia disorders. I must say that in interviewing the ED, the stories that I heard were so compelling. In this time when they usually rely on volunteers and to make calls and do visits and to keep track of families, there are so many families that are just falling through the crack. And they're quite remarkable. Alzheimer's Greater Los Angeles provides Spanish language counseling and coaching and support. They make important connections for families to health and social welfare organizations, and generally act in a role similar to a case manager when someone is suffering with Alzheimer's. They have a strong and active board. I will, for the purposes of disclosure, indicate that Michael Gavinia, I believe is it your mother or your aunt is a board member?
My aunt.
Yeah, which I only discovered because I said, oh, I know somebody named Gavinia. So That, I don't know if you need to recuse yourself, but this application did not come as a recommendation from Michael or from anyone in his family. It came through the regular application process. This is a very strong organization, strong leadership, extensive commitments and roots. And I believe that it's a recommendation with very low risk that the work they propose to do would not be completed. They have asked for general operating support. They serve 200 families in the Vernon catchment area on an annual basis. So the cost benefit is a remarkable return on the investment for the Vernon Community Fund. And it's almost immeasurable in terms of the comfort and support that families get at this time when they are not able to leave home. And these are, of course, some of our highest risk individuals for COVID-19. So the organization really is working extraordinary hours to keep their commitments to these families. Are there any questions?
But my question would be just to legal counsel, should I recuse myself? I don't think I did last time based on your recommendation, but I just obviously want to double check.
No, if you do not receive any compensation and your spouse or no one in your household receives compensation, you would not be required. Obviously, you're always welcome to recuse if you feel more comfortable, but it wouldn't be mandated.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, yeah, I'm not getting any compensation, nor is anyone in the household, so.
I would indicate that this is a second grant to the organization from the Vernon Community Fund. They really perform very well on their project report. Their data is very consistent with what they propose to do. They provided care and support services to 3,561 caregivers in the Vernon area during with their previous grant, and obviously other resources. They originally applied for $10,000. The reason that I asked them to reapply for $17,745 is because we had this unusual situation where we were trying to force the numbers. And after we reviewed the entire grant docket, we had this $7,745 left over. We discussed it as a team, and then we discussed it with the Vernon staff. And I asked the Alzheimer's Association to withdraw and reapply for the $17,475. So the grant is, the recommendation is consistent with their request, but their request for $10,000 had come in a long time ago before COVID-19. And we recognized in this year that they could probably use additional funds, which indeed they could.
Thank you, Fran. Chair Lopez, I would suggest that she review all of the grantees, and then you can make one motion at the end or modify the recommendations in one motion at the end.
Yes, that would be great.
Thank you, Lisa. The second applicant, if there are no questions, I'll move on. Camp TLC, Together Living a Challenge. I keep calling it Tender Loving Care at East LA Rising. This is a community service organization, a recognized 501c3 with a 7-member board of directors, founded in 2010. They work with children who have experienced trauma. And, you know, there is a lot of new information emerging about the long-term effects of different kinds of trauma. And trauma can be associated with family violence, with conditions related to poverty and dislocation, with immigration, sudden changes in a child's life. And so many children experiencing trauma also experience the rejection that comes often with the antisocial behavior that accompanies their behavior, and it's not often known what the cause is. So trauma-informed care is a growing specialty within family and children's services, particularly children who have been in foster care or forced separation from their parents. And it's strongly correlated to preventing social dysfunction in children and young adults. So Camp TLC seeks to interrupt the negative mental development, and they use a variety of methods, many of which are now missing in terms of regular schooling and what communities offer. So they provide for children experiences related to arts and physical development, sports, field trips to the extent that they can, and also tutoring and mentoring, so that these young people who are enrolled in Camp TLC develop positive coping skills and heightened levels of self-esteem. They serve about 200 children each year from the Vernon catchment area, and remarkably, 100% of the young people enrolled in Camp TLC achieve high school graduation, and that's an astounding rate. If you notice on the write-up, the graduation rate for students in our catchment area is about 34%. So they do a remarkable job of helping children get through accomplishing one of their major life goals. And they've received national attention. The funds would be used for the mentor program. And the request aligns certainly with everything that we espouse through the Vernon Community Fund, the ordinance, and our values. I don't really think there's going to be a huge negative effect on their ability to operate in the current conditions if the quarantine continues. They've been successful in doing more virtual work, and since they tend to work one-on-one with young people, it doesn't rely on, crowded situations. I'm sure some of the activities have been reduced, but by and large, we feel that Camp TLC would benefit from the grant and make the best use of the funding, and that the cost benefit to the community is remarkable, considering how the community benefits when more students graduate from high school and are better prepared to enter the labor market or go on to higher education. They plan to serve 200 families, mostly in the East LA area. Are there any questions? So the recommendation is for $45,850 to Camp TLC at East LA Rising. And this is a new, they're a new organization, a new applicant. Shall I go on? Are we?
I have no questions.
Okay. This is kind of, I know the new normal, but I'm not accustomed to it. I'm like, okay, what are you all thinking? Let me hear. But we'll move on. The Center for Nonviolent Education and Parenting, doing business as Echo Training, is the next request. Their annual budget is $745,800, and they're requesting $40,000. This organization is committed to enhancing family functioning, and they focus on nonviolent parenting. This is a return grantee on their first grant. They performed well. They were based then at the Wellness Center at Old County Hospital, where they held classes. Many of their clients are referred from the courts. The children are at risk of being separated from their families because of family violence or antisocial behavior. And then the court mandates anger management training for the parents, and often counseling and other supportive services for the children. Again, this is a huge problem in our county. I would say that the organization, the recommendation is a strong one, because the organization has successfully pivoted to the virtual format, where many of these programs have closed down. And so there's the courts, there's just less access to resources to help families stay united. But this organization has pivoted to the virtual environment. They're able to do individual and small group sessions, as we are doing on Zoom. The parents are able to participate, and in fact, the virtual environment has advantages because it reduces the need for travel and childcare and other barriers to participation that kept families from benefiting from their services. So the demand for this kind of services is up at a time when programs are greatly reduced because of the closure of so many organizations and places where people would usually go for services. I think that as with the last time, the organization performs very well. They work with many of our grantees, and they serve the organizations that we fund, like the YMCA and Jóvenes, and organizations that where we've made investments in families and young people. And when those young people run into trouble, our grantees are able to access services through ECHO training. There's been some research to demonstrate the efficacy of the methods that are used, and that many of the trainers and facilitators who come back to the program were once parents who relied on the services. The cost, each family pays a little on a sliding scale. So a family might pay $20. But for that, they can get both individual and group sessions, and they can get their anger management certificates that are needed for the court. And that's just an amazing cost benefit for taxpayers and for the parents themselves. So we think that this application deserves funding and would be a very positive reflection on the intent of the Vernon Community Fund. Do you have questions? Comments? Okay. Well, we're getting through these. Item number 4 is Chicas Rockeras, Southeast Los Angeles, which really caught my eye. I must say, I really enjoyed doing the due diligence on this new applicant. Those of you who are fluent in Spanish probably had an easier time understanding what this meant, but I did not. We did do some extensive due diligence with the leadership of the organization, and we viewed not just their website. In the absence of site visits, we typically view the website, review all their documents, but then we look beyond that at ways in which they have affected the community. So we look at newsletters, we look at press releases, we talk to other foundations that fund them, and we try to get the best kind of view that we can get. I do feel that we're hampered sometimes by not being able to go and do a physical site visit. So I can say that we did meet and did have extensive interviews with the director, and then we also talked to people in other foundations that are funding their work. The organization has a 5-member board of directors, and these typically are young people who are musicians and who struggled as musicians, and they are mostly from the LGBTQ community. So they struggled with their difference, feeling difference in terms of their art and their talent, often estranged from their families because of their lifestyle, and many times resorting to not good means of coping. And disproportionately, the girls tend to suffer more, because adolescence is a really hard time for girls, and finding their way and finding a support network can be very challenging. So this organization was founded at the inspiration of musicians who had come through a similar set of circumstances, and they do outreach and recruit young LGBTQ people from different organizations, from schools, from referrals, from other places. And their program consists of 3 parts. There's the social engagement connection piece. There's the creative and artistic piece, where they take lessons, they get instruments, they learn to play, they learn to perform together as a group and do performances. And it is a workforce. There's a workforce component, because many of them go on to work in the music industry, where there's greater acceptance of LGBTQ individuals, their lifestyle, and there's less rejection, I guess, experienced by young people at in the workplace. So the organization does a really good job of recruiting mentors, providing instruction classes, getting instruments into the hands of the young people, and then getting them, even now when they can only work virtually, into performing as groups. The young people are engaged and self-report that their attitude toward life and family and community is greatly improved with this support system that comes through their involvement with Chicas Roqueras. They requested $25,000, and that is the recommendation. They support 75 young people, primarily in the Southeast LA area, which is for the Vernon Community Fund, an underserved area. So I was very happy to see that they work in Maywood and Huntington Park, and they have young people from Bell. They do have some from Southgate and probably just over the line in Los Angeles. So their effort to recruit and support young people in that part of our catchment area is impressive. So it's primarily a year-round program, but of course they're looking forward to the spring and the summer and being able to perform and show off. And so the $25,000 will primarily be used to support young people for instruments, for lessons by instructors who are paid a modest sum. I think it's a really good value for $25,000 to the community. Obviously, we recommend it. I'm glad. I'm not exactly sure how they found us. They requested $26,070. We rounded it down to $25,000. I think that was just, again, we were challenged with doing this arithmetic and made it a little easier, but they were fine with $25,000.
Fran, I looked into that organization, and they also do a lot of like empowerment, like girl empowerment, women empowerment. They seem like a very positive agency.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Yeah, I got that impression too. And then they got funding from the Novo Foundation, which is all about empowering women and girls. So I think when another the Novo Foundation is the Walton family, Walmart family foundation. So when a large national organization recognizes a small community effort, I think that underscores its value to our community.
Most definitely. I just wanted to share.
I'm glad you did. Thank you for helping us. Questions or comments? Okay, the next one, item number 5, is the East LA Community Corporation. They applied for $60,000. The recommendation is for $60,000. They're a community development organization. We've provided grants to them before. They've done some amazing development projects in the community. Their annual budget, I thought, would be higher, but it's just under $4 million. They have a 7-member board of directors who I think really represent, if there's a way I would characterize the board, these are all young people who came up in the community, went out, and then came back to give back after they, went to Harvard and other Ivy League schools and established successful professional credentials. And I think the organization has been a vital resource in the community. At this time, the emphasis in this request is on housing. And again, as we've heard with other grantees and other docket reviews, the problem of gentrification in Boyle Heights and East LA is forcing renters out of the community. That was before the COVID-19 epidemic, and now people have real issues with evictions and dislocation, which just compounds all the problems that families are already struggling with. So the East LA Community Corporation is a place of first resort, not last resort, for community members that can get assistance with housing, with food distribution, with access to other needs. The request for $60,000 is for general operating support because they, like other organizations that depend on various forms of government and foundation funding, are experiencing decreased revenue from fundraising. So the recommendation is for $60,000. I think that they expect to serve approximately 1,200 individuals in a year. They focus on alleviating poverty. And they have completed many successful projects in the community. I suspect that their work is known to many members of the committee. Do you have questions about this particular grant? Recommendation, not a grant. It's only a recommendation. So the recommendation then would be for $60,000, Chair Lopez. We will move on to item number 6. Is it Girl Scouts or Girls on the Run? Girl Scouts. The Girl Scouts of Greater Los Angeles. They request $30,000. They're a returning grantee. This was an application that came in. James, do you remember? I mean, we've had it. We were scheduled to bring it to the committee at our meeting in the spring, and then we were concerned about the businesses in Vernon that were closing down because of COVID-19, and so we pulled back a couple of the grant recommendations and funded instead some economic development work. So this is the Girl Scouts, and this is the continuation of the work that they had done with a previous grant, where they actually hired a troop leader, bilingual Girl Scout, I guess troop leader, who conducts troop meetings in and around the Vernon area for girls. Sometimes these meetings are held in people's homes and or other community locations. but they were intent on keeping scouting alive for girls in the community, even though it was often difficult to find individuals who could commit the volunteer time necessary to have successful troop meetings. So they hired someone, and the program worked out really well. I especially like the parts of the program that encouraged girls to learn more about leadership and civic engagement. And I think their value is like some of the other grants that have been approved. It really strengthens the social fabric of the community, and young girls are able to learn important lessons and to feel a sense of connection and develop a support system that really carries on through most of their adolescence and sometimes into adulthood. So the recommendation is for the $30,000. It's general operating support. It goes to pay the salary primarily of the person. And I guess with the salary comes materials, transportation, and other things to augment the services that are provided in the Vernon catchment area. I can't recall. They served over 900 individuals in their last fiscal year. And James is showing me that
Late 2019.
they applied again in 2019. So I guess the reason that I mentioned that is there were 3 organizations that we were going to bring forward in the meeting in the spring of 2020. And we had them all lined up and sort of emotionally prepared, even though we never guarantee anybody a grant. Then we had to pull back. So rather than just deny the grant, then we brought it forward for your consideration on this docket. Just a little bit of administrative insight. The recommendation. James is showing me that countywide, they serve 17,000 girls. So for the Vernon area, the fact that they're able to reach almost 1,000 is I think significant. And so the recommendation is for $30,000. And do you have any questions or comments?
Fran, quick question on this. The budget is that correct? That number, it seems low for the Girl Scouts of Greater Los Angeles. Up on the front page of $106,000. I was just surprised that it's that low.
So on the application, I think that the portion of the overall Girl Scout budget that is related to serving this area is $106,000. Let's see what the organization budget is from the 990. Do we have it? That's East LA. No. I agree with you, Michael. I think it's only a portion of the overall budget. And why might this happen? And why don't we put the full budget there? In this case, and in other cases, we often look at a portion of the overall budget as it applies to a specific geographic area, because maybe that's how they collect and distinguish funds, so that they're able to say to us, this is the amount of money we commit in this area. This is the portion of that money that we are asking you to help support. The overall budget, which is upside down on the page James is showing me, is almost $23 million, $22,579,568. And tell you the truth, Michael, it helps us when they break it down another level, because trying to analyze how they spend $22 million across LA County when we're only concerned with a specific area, it is useful for us to know what is their budget for this particular geographic area. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, I saw 106,000. I was like, that's almost my cookie budget with Thin Mints. So
Well, I know that's probably what you donated to them, and so you want to know what's the rest.
that's
Okay.
almost what I eat in Girl Scout cookies.
It's the Girl Scout cookies, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So are we ready to move on? So then after the Girl Scouts, now my pile is out of order. Girls on the Run of LA County. Girls on the Run is also a returning grantee. This is, you know, what can I tell you? This is the year of the girl. We are being asked to support this effort again. We have supported them in the past. They are an offshoot from Students on the Run, which was an organization that was founded in high schools to engage students not just in physical fitness, but also to alleviate some of the tensions that exist between different population groups in high schools. So Students on the Run help to prepare students for the LA Marathon, you know, big splash, but it was more boys than girls. And so there was an effort to recruit and engage girls, and it was decided that this is one of those examples of when not having co-ed activities works better for the male-female gender split. And so Girls on the Run has been successful in recruiting girls. And it is part of a national organization, although this is a separate entity concerned with the physical and psychological development of young girls, works and uses fitness as the modality to reach and engage girls and to help them build self-esteem, positive outlook, discipline, and the ability to reach their goal. They serve over 300 girls now, having started with about 35 when they first got started in 2011. Again, they are supported by a broad base of funding organizations, funding partners, which is always a good sign. They're not dependent on just the Vernon Community Fund. The funding would go for their 20-week program, 10 weeks in the fall and 10 weeks in the spring, in which the Vernon area girls are mentored by community residents in activities contributing to the holistic development of youth. They do run, walk, exercise training, small group discussions. They have challenging topics and generally work outdoors. So they aren't at risk of not being able to operate in the COVID-19 environment. They use local venues, which is important because they keep their overhead low. And they participate in several marathon events throughout their seasons. They have experienced reduced funding, yet they have a really good mix of staff and volunteers. So the organization is somewhat more able to absorb some loss of revenue, and they can make up for it with other kinds of personnel, primarily volunteers, or associating the effort with an established school program or some other way of assuring that the program can continue. And I think in our due diligence, one of the questions that we always ask ourselves is there a risk of giving an organization a grant and then they're not able to fulfill the grant because conditions such as what we're living under now force them to shut down or close? So we felt confident in recommending Girls on the Run because the variables are very favorable to them being able to continue to operate in almost any kind of environment. They run in bad weather and good weather. They're outdoors, and they make very good use of public space. And so a $20,000 contribution is very consistent with what other foundations provide. They're funded by the Annenberg Foundation, the California Wellness Foundation, the Pasadena Child Health Foundation, the Tournament of Roses, the Dodgers Foundation, Dwight Stewart, LA 84 Foundation. So our contribution is part of a mix of the established philanthropic community in Los Angeles. Any questions? Did I give you enough information?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Thank you. The Human Services Association. Oh, and here on the bottom tonight. The Human Services Association is a returning applicant. They were founded in 1940, and their overall budget of $22 million plus is used to provide the safety net services, many of which are contracted through county government to help families living in impoverished conditions. in these times, particularly given what's happening with employment and the quarantine, organizations such as the Human Services Association are very valuable to maintaining a sense of community and integrity in community. I'm pretty sure we've all seen on the news these long lines of people lined up to get food in other places. And people in Los Angeles County are challenged as well by food insecurity and all of the devastating effects of unemployment and loss of income, loss of housing. So the Human Services Association has this solid track record of being able to work through the community and help meet the needs of the community, to contribute to taking care of the homeless, and also to support vulnerable individuals and families who may be housed. They work a lot along the southeast portion of our catchment area. So I would say all the way from Huntington Park out to Norwalk, but a good portion of the people they serve come from Maywood, Huntington Park, Commerce, and our catchment area. They provide many of the services needed for families to remain intact and to become productive. And this grant would be very helpful with housing assistance, violence prevention, crisis intervention. And to do those services, the funds would support a case manager. Now, ordinarily, we would prefer that general operating support not go for personnel, because when the grant ends, does that mean somebody loses a job because there's no additional funding to support their ongoing work? In the case of the Human Services Association, without a case manager, they aren't able to really do the work, similar to the Alzheimer's Association and even the Girl Scouts. So paying a portion of someone's salary so that the services that sometimes are provided by volunteers can be better managed and directed, and people, a case manager will make sure that people don't fall through the cracks. So I think this is just one of the exceptions that, you know, when you look at the funding, some of it being used for personnel, and you say, is that essential? Is it important? Is it needed? This is not a project of this organization. This is the work that they do. So yes, they're going to have to figure out how to replace this this money for a case manager. But in the interim, in this critical time, I believe that supporting a full-time case manager is a good use of the funds. They expect I was trying to see if we had a numerical number here. Do we have it, James? How many people they serve? They serve over 20,000 clients. We don't have that disaggregated in terms of exactly how many are in the Southeast area, but because that's where they're based and that's where they're located and that's where most of the people that they serve come from, that we've made an assumption that based on their past performance, that they are serving hundreds, if not thousands. Yeah, we just don't have a specific number from them, and they may not be able to give us weren't able to give us a specific number, because if you have people coming in to pick up food and to do things, it's very rare that you do an intake and get a zip code and find out where these folks are from. It's unlikely that somebody drives all the way out to Commerce, you know, from, you know, distant areas of the county. So the assumption is if they're serving 20,000 people, a significant number of those people are from the Vernon catchment area. And so on their application, they estimate that it's more than 200 people. I would have estimated more that come from the Vernon catchment area, but they just don't have documentation on everybody that they serve because of the kinds of services there, you know, the massive food giveaways and referrals, walk-ins that they do. Any questions? So next up is number 9, the Southeast Churches Center. And again, you know, this is something that the city of Vernon can really feel good about, because you are making an important investment in services that might disappear were it not for the contribution of the fund. So, you know, recommending again the Southeast Churches Service Center is a returning grantee. They provide services to children and youth and families. They work through the churches to distribute food, clothing, alleviate poverty, provide emotional support. It's a faith-based effort that really is a reflection of groups of churches coming together to do things that you know, where no one church could manage. So this organization has been around since 1983. It doesn't have a very large budget. They provide social support, counseling. My sense is that the churches open their doors to the community, and that the grant helps the churches to remain open to the community. So it's not like we're investing in any one particular religion, but the kind of support from having senior centers to senior citizens groups to youth and family groups, even to just prayer and meditation, is helpful when small churches can get some support for all of the work that they do in the community. I'm stumbling a little bit through the words here because Letitia's not able to be with us this morning, and she did the due diligence on this. I remember when we had our own internal staff presentation, that she had gotten information that organizations in the community really value the input of Southeast churches, and that they do a lot of advocacy work on behalf of organizations, on behalf of populations that are experiencing problems with the issues we're very familiar with that include housing. So again, can you go back so that I can provide a little more information here? I'm just looking at on their application. So that's Woodcraft Rangers. I'm sorry. So yeah, they're not giving us a specific number. But let me just say they're based in Huntington Park. They help individuals and families improve their quality of life. They have accessible sites, so they're able to work with people with disabilities. They are both bilingual. Their staff is bilingual, and they are organized around immediate needs. So somebody could come in and get housing voucher, transportation voucher, food, those kinds of things that the churches combine to provide support for. So I'm sorry to sound a little sketchy on this, but the way we had to organize the work this time is different than in the past because of the large number of applications that we had to review in time for this one docket. So I'm learning as we roll this out that we want to be very consistent in the information that we provide for you. And well, the next time, I guess will be next year, we'll be sure to pick up on more of these details. Do you have any questions? I do have notes here, and I do have their original application. So if there's any concern, we can try to answer that question. Any questions, comments?
No questions.
Okay, they did fine on their first grant. So we did get a final report. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I hear something. I could say they serve over 1,000 people every month. That's pretty impressive. Okay, so we would recommend them for $50,000. So we're moving on to Woodcraft Rangers. So this one I can really speak more specifically to because I actually had a lot of conversations with Woodcraft Rangers. They've been a returning grantee. They're a returning grantee. They have worked with the Vernon School and with many of the schools in the Vernon catchment area. And I have done for the previous recommendations, I have done site visits, and particularly when they went through their leadership transition, I felt it was important to, since they replaced the ED and several people at the top of the organization, which can sometimes cause organizations to falter. So we did do extensive due diligence on Woodcraft Rangers. And I think that they're managing to cope and to continue to thrive in this environment. They're an old organization founded back in the Depression, after the Depression, 1934. Their budget is over $10 million. They provide services through the unified school districts, primarily in schools, and they do after-school programs in low-income areas. They have a strong board of directors, and they are really well known and recognized for what we call after the bell, when classes end for many students at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon until parents are off from work. The Woodcraft Rangers offers programs that supplement the academic work of young people, and provides snacks and nutrition until children can be picked up. Now, that raises the question, what are they doing now that some schools are not in session? And they are still providing outdoor sports and recreation where possible. And they have their own staff, so they're not reliant on the staff of the school district to work with the young people. They support day camp and overnight camp, and they are hoping that by the summer they will be able to maintain these services that in the past have been tremendously valued by the kids and their families. Particularly, their focus on the schools in the Vernon community, really. The Vernon School was where they had one of their biggest programs, and where many kids got to go to sleepaway camp for the first time. So we're hopeful that they'll be able to do that in the spring and summer of this year. Since we're only doing grants, general grants in this November docket, there is some risk that they may not be able to open up and carry out the full program as planned. However, I think there's little risk that the organization won't exist and that they won't be doing any services. I think that they will have to shift based on what the prevailing conditions are at the time that they would normally do the summer camp and the day camps. At the time that the application came in, we didn't have any reason to believe that the quarantine would be going on this long. And I don't know now that we can say that the quarantine will be over in June or July when school ends. The availability of vaccines, et cetera, that could influence whether or not children will be able to participate, or parents will even let their children do something like a sleepaway camp. So part of what they expect to use the money for may in fact not exist. We have it as not a project recommendation, but as general operating support, because we don't think the organization is going to go away. The specific use of the funds could then go for their outdoor activities and sports and recreation, tutoring, after school activities, whenever they're able to operate. I realize that's not a full-throated recommendation, but I don't know anybody who could say that for sure on July 1 or August 1, that students would be able to go to sleepaway camp, which is one of the main reasons they wanted to get the help again from the Vernon Community Fund. So I do think it's a valuable organization. I think they provide valuable service. They work in our catchment area through the school districts. I think they will continue to provide services if the grant is approved. I think we'll have to monitor the grant to make sure that they are doing something valuable with the work that along the lines of what is intended. But approving the grant at this time, I think we're asking you to envision what the circumstances will look like for this organization that intended to have day camp and sleepaway camp with these funds, what the conditions will look like in July.
Fran, I guess just to chime in, I mean, I would think it's wrong if we were to, hold the money back. And not saying we're considering that, but if we were to hold it back due to the pandemic and the potential of them not having a camp next summer, I guess the question then is, how can we monitor it appropriately that the money goes to what the VCF, to the guidelines of the VCF, being, hitting those requirements that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Fran, I do know, working with families, I do know that I've contacted like liaisons that help support like students, the riskier students. Like I have a client, for instance, that his mom speaks no English, his teacher only speaks English. So I know that they do have like these special services for them to still be able to come to school, for those riskier kids that are going to fall through the cracks with this virtual learning.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they would possibly be able to support, like the Woodcraft Rangers would possibly change their services a little to help support those students that are having more difficulty with this virtual learning. And the fact is that a lot of parents have no idea how to navigate through the virtual learning. And many of them are just not even checking into their classes at all because they're not able to log on. There's a communication barrier, language barrier. So I don't know if that would be something that the Woodcraft Rangers would be able to support if it doesn't look the same in the future, what they used to provide. Not sure if they're one of the agencies or that do that now, because I do know that some students are coming in. They're also really big in LAUSD, which is the families that I work in. So I don't, it's possible that they are doing that. I'm not sure though.
We can certainly follow up on that. I think that you're absolutely right that is a critical need. To Michael's point, we do ask for a 6-month report and a 12-month report. So if the report would be due just about the time that they would have to have made the arrangements for the campsite and all of that. So my assumption is that is part of our work, is to monitor the implementation of these grants and to make sure that the grant is proceeding as expected. So in this case, even before the grant agreement letter is signed, we can get a sense from them of what they expect to do. And if there is a way to modify based on the suggestion of Chair Lopez, it could be that they're having this discussion themselves now, because you realize it's been some time since they applied, and that we did the due diligence. So we definitely can monitor the grant, check back with them. Usually what happens when an organization isn't able to fulfill the terms of the grant agreement letter, which in this case is general operating support, then we would indicate in the report to the grant fund that we either recommended that they shift the objectives or make some changes, because I think the last thing we want to do is to pull a grant. We've never done that, ask them to return money. So I think it's up to us to monitor the grant and make sure that they are in fact fulfilling the grant agreement letter.
Yeah, and
The contract.
I believe, Fran, that, I mean, they're sophisticated organization, they're a returning grantee. I believe they'll pivot. I just want to make sure that and you brought it to light, and I want to just make sure that they're within the realm, which I have no doubt they will be, but to your point, how do we ensure it? And I think you addressed that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we're getting through this. Thank you for your attention. The last is the YWCA. I've shuffled these and gotten them out of order. I don't have the YWCA here. Here it is, sorry. So this is the Union Pacific Empowerment Center of the YWCA, which is based in East LA. It's a project of the overall YWCA, which is a long-standing, very well-respected organization serving the Los Angeles community for decades. The Union Pacific Center serves low-income families in Huntington Park, unincorporated East LA, and the city of Vernon. The purpose of this grant is to, this grant recommendation is to provide workforce development for women who are, and young women who are experiencing dislocation because of unemployment, having to change jobs because their housing situation changed, the different circumstances. This is an opportunity for them to learn new skills that are perhaps more marketable. So you do realize that the YWCA operated for many years and probably still does in downtown LA, the Job Corps, and they have a deep expertise in managing workforce and job training programs. And this particular effort is in our catchment area, whereas the downtown Y, even though it might serve people from our area, isn't located there. So this one's, so for them to make the investment in the Union Pacific Center seems like an important aspect of this grant recommendation. They focus on community improvement, youth empowerment, child development, workforce development, and senior engagement. They wanted to focus on senior engagement. However, the conditions are not conducive to that. This is where we encourage them to look at shifting their emphasis to workforce development and retraining women, which is an existing component of their work and can be done virtually, whereas the senior engagement is one that requires high-risk groups of people coming together in one place, which isn't going to probably be advisable anytime in the near future. So again, this is one of those that we held back from the last cycle in the spring, and we were all looking forward to doing senior engagement, and now it doesn't seem like that is a workable solution. So we are asking that the general operating support be used for shift to more of the workforce activities, and we believe that they are able to make that adjustment. We don't have a really good method for making the change per se in the recommendation description at this point in the due diligence process when we present it to the committee. But we do, with the grant agreement letter, at that point, can assure that the emphasis is going to shift to workforce engagement, and that the grantee, if approved, understands that the grant is conditioned on their being able to fulfill some reasonable objective related to workforce investment. Although this had originally been conceptualized as senior engagement, and we just didn't believe that we would still be would not be able to fulfill that aspect. I don't know if that means that we should think about having an addendum to the recommendation based on this conversation with the grant committee, if that would require a motion and an approval of the grant committee. But again, the overall purpose of the grant recommendation is general operating support, so that's not changing. The amount of money is not changing. It really is just the emphasis by which the grantee, if awarded the grant, would use the funds. I can share with you what would probably be a best practice in private philanthropy, but I don't know, particularly with the city administration at the table and the grants committee members, if there's any strong feeling about how we handle this going forward. And Scott and Diana, I would say to you that even when we met weeks ago, we didn't anticipate that they would not be able to do the work that they had planned. So I just want to assume responsibility here for raising this issue and making sure that we're all in alignment with how we proceed.
Thank you, Fran. I think this might have happened in a previous meeting where, and I want to say it was related to scholarships, maybe a scholarship program where the committee as a whole agreed that the grantee should focus on whatever program that they had proposed, and specified when they made the motion to approve the grant that that was going to be where the money would be directed. And I think that it worked out fine at that time, and I'm thinking that that would be the case here if when the these grants are approved, the committee can just specify that that's where the funding should be going. I think that would be okay. And of course, city clerk and city attorney can advise me otherwise. That's not the case. And then I think in addition, just one more thing to add, we can specify that. Well, as we know, in the grant agreement, we do articulate exactly what the funding should be for. So that's just another mechanism to make sure that their funds go to the place that we're intending them to go.
So let's just say that there was modifications that were made, like down the line, they're not able to utilize the funds in the way that they had described to us in their application. Is it possible for them to just like resubmit and say, you know what, we were unable because of COVID to utilize the funds in this manner, so we're going to do it in this manner instead and modify it? Are we able to have them do that and then approve it at that point if there's any of these, you know, agencies that submit something like that, like a modification?
I think that's a really good point. And the reason that I'm comforted by this process is that general operating support is intended to support the work of the organization, whereas project support is intended to support specific outcomes of a project. So if it were a project that they could not complete for any reason, then I think we would have to seek some kind of modification, amendment to the grant agreement letter. But in terms of non-legal, you know, opinions here, typically the practice in philanthropy, in private philanthropy, is more to say, to work with the grantee to say, what will you do? And to make sure that that covers the expectation that general operating funds are good to be used, great to be used that way. We do have a chance, the next steps going on from here. At the end of this meeting, we usually call and have a conversation to let people know that the grant recommendation is moving forward. And then we work with the administrative team to develop the grant agreement letters. And it is the grant agreement letter that really forms the contract between the city and the grantee. This recommendation is, you know, the recommendation to get the approval of the grants committee. But I think that you're right. If we were to find something between now and the time that that grant agreement letter was written and a check, you know, executed, if there were a need to make a change, that we would definitely flag that. We will have these conversations. We usually have them the same afternoon or within days of the committee meeting to let people know, because they're interested in knowing. Put that on.
Right, just to provide a little insight on the administrative piece, they do execute the grant agreement prior to any funds being disseminated. So we have the opportunity to state in that agreement what the city is looking to do, and then of course collaborate with the grantee to make sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone is aware of expectations. And once we have that agreement fully executed, then funds are disseminated. And of course, we have the checkpoints that Fran mentioned earlier with the 6-month and the year review as well.
Since these letters are yet to be, like these contracts are yet to be formulated, is there something that we can put on there? Because now there's COVID and, you know, we don't understand specifically when it's gonna change in terms of quarantining and so forth and all that. Is it possible to include that in that contract? Like if there's any reason that for, due to COVID, that you're not able to utilize the funds in the manner that you originally had stated on your application, like please resubmit as to how they're going to be utilized or something like that, how the funds are going to be utilized? Because I would want to know, I know it's like general grants, but I would want to know how the money is going to be utilized for sure. If it changes from the original plan.
And just chiming in on the legal side, I think we could certainly craft language basically requiring notice or a second review if the original, sort of intent for the funds is going to be impacted due to COVID. But as Fran was mentioning, I think it depends on whether it is the committee's wish to support general operating type projects or something more specific and project-based that would actually be prevented by COVID. But certainly, I mean, our office always reviews the agreements before they're sent out for signature and finalized. So if that's the direction, then we can work with admin on that. And we're always, of course, able to bring it back if we needed to call a special meeting, if there was, a significant change or something that was really going to impact this grantee's ability to provide. We, of course, always have the option to come back.
I would definitely want to see that for sure. So yeah, I would want it to be put onto the contract that if there's any changes to just advise us, even though if it's general, I would just want to know where the money is being used.
I agree, Chair Lopez, and I think that in both these instances with Woodcraft Rangers and the YWCA, we have long-standing, sturdy organizations. If this were a startup organization, it would be quite a different problem because they may be looking at the organization going out of business. And then there'd be a real concern about what would happen with the money. But we can work with these sort of well-managed, established community organizations. So I'm relieved by that.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I'm comfortable with that for sure. Okay, does the committee have any technical questions for staff? Are there any public comments? Is there anyone in the audience at this time or no? I don't think oh, no, there is not. Okay, so may I have a motion for item number 4, 1 through 11?
So move to approve the 11 grant applications. This is Michael Gavini.
Is there a second?
Second, this is Chang.
Is there any discussion from the committee? Okay.
So
Secretary?
I'll call the roll. Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gavinia,
Aye.
Member Chang,
Aye.
Member Gonzalez,
Aye.
Member Merlo,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, we will now go on to oral reports.
Unless Diana or Scott have anything, I don't believe there are any oral reports.
Okay,
No.
are there?
Oh, no report. I just wanted to welcome Ms. Merlot. Hello.
Yes.
We enjoyed having you here at this first meeting. And I also wanted to say thank you to everyone for your attention. I know this was a very, very large docket. We're starting our semi-annual meetings here, and I hope that it worked out for everyone. our next meeting will have the scholarship grants. And if this is the format that seems to be working with everyone, then we will continue. If anyone feels like it was a little too much today, just let us know and maybe we can kind of reconfigure this. Is everyone good with the large docket review?
I was okay. How
Okay,
does everyone else feel?
I was gonna say different, but good, just like 2020.
okay, great.
Right. We're gonna roll with it. No other choice.
Perfect. Okay,
Okay,
that's all
thank you,
for me.
Diana.
Thank you.
Are there any reports from the committee members? Seeing that there are none, without any further business, I adjourn this meeting at 11:43.
Oh, we made it, 12 o'clock.
Great job.
Thank you, everybody. It's great to see you on camera.
Yes, have a happy Thanksgiving to you all, and everyone stay safe.
Thank you.
and
You too.
healthy.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.